Tucked away in a quiet part of Oregon sits a place that hasn't just been preserved, it still works. Built in 1858, Thompson's Flouring Mills is one of the last water-powered grist mills in the state that can still run. Today, we're stepping inside to see how it all works and what it was like to rely on something like this every single day.
Well, good morning, YouTubers. We are here at Thompson's Flouring Mills in a little place called Shed, Oregon. It's an interesting place. I guess it's still an active operating water mill run by water from whatever river that is.
Calapooya. It's the Calapooya River, and it was built in 1858, and it is one of the last water-powered mills. We were lucky enough to get the full tour, and honestly, Bill knew everything about this place.
So let's go in.
All right, let's go.
There are a couple of things that I can tell you while you're out here.
Okay.
Like the house is kind of a Queen Anne style home, and it was the home of the Millers for a long time. But the original builder is a guy named Richard Finley.
Okay.
And Richard was a good businessman. It's funny because he was less a miller than the people that he hired to run the mill.
Oh, okay.
There was a guy named William Simons, and they used to live here on site in a little cabin that was in the back here. The house had not been built. The house was built in 1904. Finley basically had a small mill up in Crawfordsville, and he told his wife, "Here, wife, operate this mill." He went down to the 1849 gold rush.
Oh, wow.
In California.
Okay.
He came back with gold,
Oh my goodness.
and that's what
Good
allowed
for him.
to
Somewhat
build
rich,
this.
huh?
He wasn't totally rich, but rich enough that he was able to
enough.
build this mill. And he recognized that there was about a 16-foot drop in the river that he could build a mill here. And there wasn't a mill in the area. So this was where he really wanted to serve the local farmers of the area. A lot of the people, and I'll show you how the farmers on this side of the valley kind of came here. And that kept them from having to go all the way up to Albany or heavens to Betsy up to Oregon City. Because by horse and wagon, that's a long trip.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So let's
So
go
did
in.
he have any kind of engineering background?
Not particularly. He was more of a businessman.
So who's responsible for the design?
Well, the design, and it's been added on over the years. The silos we have here, and everybody says, "Oh, these 4 silos." I'll prove there's 6 of them.
All right, then.
So let's go in.
Awesome.
Now, most of the mill actually has been added on since the Thompsons took over, and that was in 1892.
Okay.
So it was a much smaller mill at the time.
Nice.
Yeah, you see the layer cake kind of a situation that is there.
Uh-huh.
That is, in particular, what they did was they built a form, poured the concrete, slipped the form up, poured the concrete. That's what you call a slip form concrete building.
Interesting.
And the reason why it's concrete, because Thompson's recognized that concrete is non-flammable. On the inside, it's cool. And the third thing is it keeps rodents out.
There you go.
When you look at all these farms that have silos that are metal or wood, they have a real problem with rodents.
I bet they do.
Now this area here, again, was added on, but much later. They put in this Fairbanks Morris scale. And this scale was put in 1956. So basically before that, what people would do would be come in by horse and wagon. And down there I'll show you a patch in the wall that is a tip out. And they used to unload the wagons by hand into that tip out, and they would weigh whatever came in. Much later in the 1900s, in the 50s, the operator would sit here in the window and they'd bring a pickup in or a small truck and weigh it, then would come over to our pit and they would dump it. And there's something unique about that. Let me show you that. This is you can see the crawl underneath, because every once in a while you'd have to get underneath and do some cleaning. But you can see there's the 4 silos, but here's 5 and 6. The interstitial areas were used as silos, so they could keep as much as 35,000 bushels.
Oh, wow.
And what Finley started, or Simons started, was he would have, and they would measure out the bushels. But Finley and Simons had wheat already ground, so they do an exchange. The farmer didn't have to come in and wait for his wheat or barley or rye to be ground. Finley already had some, so he would exchange 40 pounds of ground flour for every bushel of wheat. So that was always a little more, because a bushel of wheat would be a little bit more than 40 pounds.
Okay.
He would keep that extra and go sell it. This is what I meant by him being a better businessman. And it's the first time that kind of system was ever used. Other than that, people would come into a mill and they'd have their wheat or flour or rye turned into flour.
Nice.
So this is the pit that you would come in with the smaller truck, and they'd come up here and because pickups are not dump trucks, they
oh my
had
goodness.
a contraption. I don't think they invented it, but they would put that underneath the front wheels and then hoist the front of the pickup up with these steel beams. And this is how they could dump the pickup. One thing about these guys that owned and operated the place, they were pretty ingenious.
Yes, they were.
And entrepreneurs. Now, some of the stuff didn't work, obviously.
Right.
When Thompson's took over, again, they expanded the mill, and they tried different things. You see that aluminum pipe that goes up to the 3rd floor. They put that in there, thinking that they could have a fan up there and it would suck the grain up. Didn't work.
No, I don't see that.
Oh, wow.
So now later on, Thompson's there were 3 generations of Thompsons that operated the mill for over 80 years. Martin Thompson was the original Thompson, and Otto Thompson was the second son, and then Merrill Thompson operated for the 3rd. And Ott actually operated the mill for 50 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was the operator for most of the time.
Okay.
And they added things on like this little portico. And you see that grate over there, that's another pit. And in the bottom of the pits are augers that will bring, once you dump the flour, or you dump the wheat, or whatever, your grain, into the pit, that auger would take it inside, take it all the way up on an elevator, bring it over by another auger, and then deposit it into these silos.
Okay.
So it's kind of a round robin cycle
Yeah.
that they get into here.
Chickens.
Yeah, we feed the chickens in various places and they hang out. I'm not an engineer. I'm a wildlife biologist.
Oh,
And thus we do wildlife sightings here on the property.
nice.
We also do bird walks in the spring. This is one of the turbines that run things. everybody asks us, well, where's your water wheel? We've never had a water wheel here. It's always been these turbines. There's been 3 of them here. Now this particular turbine was damaged. And if you want to look at it here, you can see the fins. A big log came down and jammed itself in there. And you can see how it bent.
Oh, wow.
So this is a problem. Now this particular turbine was built in 1913. And you can see how we have both the excess water going through the tail race, but a lot of the water that will run these turbines is in what we call our flume gate. And it comes in, drops down the 16 feet, down into the turbine through these gates and down through the gate itself. And there's a runner, what I call a pinwheel, that's on the bottom. And that's what turns the shaft. And if you glance up at the mill here, you can see this is the first floor, second, third, and fourth. And actually it goes second floor, third floor, fourth floor, and then the fifth is the cupola up there. We call the basement our first floor.
Gotcha.
So
That's very European.
let's go inside and welcome to our lobby. This is where I always relate the people of the town of Shed. Do you know how Portland got its name? There were 2 guys that came out west here. One guy from Boston, one guy from Portland, Maine. They literally flipped a penny. And I've got the story of the Portland penny. And the guy from Portland, Maine won. And that's how Portland got its name. I've always thought that maybe the other guy came down here and wanted a town, so he platted a town called Boston.
Interesting.
Now, I found out later that that really wasn't true. It was Richard Finley that actually platted the town here.
Okay.
Because here's the mill property. And Finley bought the property from a guy named Augustus Savage, who's buried straight down the street here a little bit on a big hill. And there's a
We saw that.
Yeah, we
he's
saw that
buried
one.
on top, his family's buried around the bottom of that.
Okay.
And what Augustus got from Finley was $50. But Finley had to buy the water right. And he had to buy that from Robert Blake, who was another guy that owned the water right. And he had to pay $75 for the water right.
Oh my gosh.
And at one time, all the water from the Calapooya River ran through this mill. So it's always been kind of a point of contention with ODFW, Fish and Wildlife, because this mill stopped salmon and steelhead from running up the Calapooya.
Oh, okay.
And it was much later that when the state bought this place in 2003 and got it ready for public consumption,
Okay.
they actually sold back 180 cubic feet per second to the river so that the river would always have water in it. But Frank Shedd was the guy that first came down here. And he said, geez, there's a railroad coming to the Willamette Valley. And he went to the railroad and said, would you like a station on your railroad? The railroad did not want to come over here to the town of Boston because they were in the floodplain. So, you know, the railroad over here, that is the railroad that was built down here and is still there to this day. But Frank offered to put a station there, and it was called Frank Shedd's Station. Then it became Shed's, and then they dropped the S, and it became Shed. Now the people of Shed moved a lot of their houses from the town of Boston. About a quarter of the town had cabins on it. And those people wanted to be out of the floodplain too. So they literally picked up the cabins and moved them to the town site of Shed.
Oh, interesting.
Some of the houses that are over there in Shed are those original cabins. The people down there in Shed, most of them were working here in the mill. This was the industry of the area. And they would help move the product either from here over to the railroad or from the railroad over here. Because the Willamette Valley, this part of the Willamette Valley is not good for growing corn. And the corn would be shipped in by rail. The people over there in Shed would help move it over here to be milled and then back and put on the railroad. And then it would go to places like Shanghai. And much later, through World War I and World War II, it went to the various places in Europe. Now, a lot of the equipment that you see here, I can't tell you anything about it because I'm not an engineer, I'm a biologist. I can only tell you what I've learned over time. And these are called crown gears. Now you can see, go ahead and turn the wheel if you would. It takes a little muscle to turn that. And you can see why Finley thought that water power was the thing to use here. Because anytime you turn heavy gears and the crown gears and all, and you have it change directions to power your machinery, it's heavy. And at that time, of course, there was no electricity at the time. Now I can say that really the first place here in this part of the valley that had electricity was here. They put a generator in, a small generator that powered the lights in the mill here and in the house. And for many, many years, these were the only places that had electricity. Everybody was still using oil for lamps and everything. But you can see here on some of the belts. Go ahead and feel these. What do you think the belts were used for? Yep. But where did they come from?
Cows.
What was happening in the 1870s? Now he's partially right.
What was happening in the 1870s?
Yes.
Here?
Buffalo.
Oh.
They were slaughtering the buffalo and taking the skins. Now those skins went back to make belts. Everybody thinks belts. Belts.
Oh,
this
wow.
is what they actually made. The people don't have that connection
Right.
until they see something like this. Now, you're right. This is cow leather. It's not buffalo leather. But they do put them together, and they can, in the summer, belts will stretch, so they can add a piece with these alligator clips. And in the winter, when the belts shrink, they will take these pieces out. So that's how you can extend or shorten the belts because of the season.
And they would shrink that much?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's kind of funny because you've got the two crown gears here, and if you ever have to want to stop some gearing, what do you do it with? How do you stop water from turning your gears? Well, you take a broom handle and you flip the belt off the gear.
Interesting.
Now think that things are still, everything downstream from where you've slipped the belt off stops, so you can repair things. But when you want to get them started again, think about slipping that belt back on. Dangerous work.
For sure.
But that's why you see a lot of broom handles around here. What's that?
Because once you get it back on, it starts moving,
Yeah.
and you gotta get out of the way.
One of the things about these gears, you can see one is made of wood. The other one is made of steel. Well, the story goes is that Thompson's had 2 boys and 4 girls. The boys had to work in the mill here. And one of their jobs was to hand carve.
Hand carve?
Hand carve.
Oh.
We've got some new ones right here. And I'm not sure all those are hand carved, but that's what one of the boys had to work in the mill here until they were 18 before they could leave. That's kind of interesting because when you have metal against metal, what happens? Sparks.
Yeah, I was just going to say friction.
And you get a very dusty mill.
Oh, yes.
Boy, that would go right up. Which is one of the reasons why one of the crown gears has always got wooden teeth.
Oh, okay.
Gears. Kind of an interesting little display that we have here. There's really only 3 simple machines. Augers for moving things horizontally. Elevators for moving things vertically. And wheels and gears, as well as belts, to actually turn things. But there's a 4th machine, simple machine. It's really not a machine, but it's gravity. And our chutes are there for gravity. Go ahead and turn it. Now in these, you can see our big grain. They're roll balls. One of them just fell down. You know that kid, look for the gold balls that are in here. Go ahead and keep turning those. We just heard one drop. All mills are based on this same configuration. A guy named Oliver Evans was the guy that came up with this. He did not build this mill, but he was back east, and he's the one that came up with this design. And all mills really are based on these 3 or 4 simple machines. When you have the grain first come in, you have to shove it through these cleaners. And then
Sifters.
this takes the chaff and the rocks, because you always, through a combine, will gather up things that you don't want in there, because when you have a stone grinder, a burr stone is what they call them, those stones kind of wear away the stone. So you always have to clean these. Now these are 3 sizes of seed cleaners that we have here. But I want to point out our flag. Notice anything about it?
Yeah, there's some stars missing.
Are they missing?
Or just reconfigured.
How many stars?
It's like 32.
34. Good. When did Oregon become a state?
1858? No.
9.
1859.
This mill was first built in 1858 by Richard Finley. It burned down in 1860 and was rebuilt by Finley in 1862. So what you're looking at in this room, and this particular room, was the granary and sat where the silos were. They literally picked it up, moved it here to build the silos in 1917. But look at the wood here on the siding. This is the original wood. So it's over 160 years old.
There are 32 there.
Are there?
Pretty sure.
That's what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah.
You're right. It's, let's see, 14 and 16.
Yep.
You're right. But that was the flag that was flying in the United States before Oregon became a state. And Oregon became a state on Valentine's Day in 1859. So this mill, when it was first built, was built in the Oregon Territory. Now, we have various boards here. And I've always wondered what a flower dresser was. We know the name Nordyke and Marmon. It's a company that made things for mills. But I never knew about a flower dresser, what that was. How do you dress your flower? But you can see examples of the auger and the chutes and the elevators. In that diagram, I did not do the diagram. Guess how many chutes we have in the mill? Anybody want to take a guess? 40. Try 114.
I was just gonna say 140.
114.
Holy cow.
114
So each
different
of those
chutes
lines
is a
different chute.
chute. Because up on the second and actually the third and fourth floors are bins. This building was absolutely different before they moved it back in here. Now think about that. They did this by horse and wagon. 1917 was when they built the silos.
Because the rail was in shed, right?
Right. So they didn't tear it down. They just literally moved the building intact from what our records have shown. So originally, the main thing to grind your wheat or barley or rye, they used limestone. This is what you call a burr stone. Feel free to roll your hand over it. But they got this limestone from France. So think about when they broke these, and they did break quite often. You can see the bigger stone over there was a stone out of Finley's first mill up in Crawfordsville. Very much more primitive style. You can see here, there's actually a shell in there. But there was a guy, Ross Springer, whose job it was to come around to these mills on horseback, and his job was to re-groove or clean the grooves that are here. And that was his grooving tool that we have. Now, it wasn't until Thompson's came in the 1890s that they switched from these burr stones to steel rollers, and that's what's over here. Now, this is not Thompson's mill. This is called Thompson's Mills. The reason why it's plural, each one of these is a mill. They had about 20 of these on the main floor, which is why they call it mills. It's just kind of interesting to see, because as you grind things through steel rollers, it was much more efficient than using the burr stone. But if we come over here, I'm gonna put somebody to work. Come on in. Go ahead and turn, please. You can feel how heavy that is.
Yeah.
But you see that when this goes down here, go ahead and keep turning. You'll start seeing it come out here. Go ahead, really turn. With water falling down, you can do that. Now this mill was operating 24/7. They had 12 people working it, which means probably 4 people a shift. Think of this, think of that noise. I'll tell you more about the noise later. That's good. So the next thing is to collect it. You don't just grind it, you gotta collect it. And once you collect it, you take what you collected, you sift it. Go ahead and sift. Perfect. What's left here goes back in here. And sift again.
That's corn.
Again, what's left there goes back in here for regrinding. And sift again. Okay, so when you get done sifting, this is what you've got. Flour. Yeah. Or sometimes they use this for brown bread.
So
Depending
this is
upon-
corn, right?
Pardon?
Is that corn?
This is a corn.
So you've either got cornmeal or corn flour or whatever you
Well, it's not corn. It's quarn. Quern.
So it's actually
That's what this is a quarn. That little one over there is the same thing. Go ahead and turn that. Only you can buy that on Amazon. It's commercial. And people do it.
This was turned by water? Or this was turned
This
by?
here, everything was run by water originally.
So people were there doing the sifting.
Well,
That was, they weren't turning stones.
here's my picture, I guess.
Well, they were pretty tough back in the old days.
Well, I mean, seriously.
Do it how you had to do it.
These are the sifters, right here. You can see how many levels.
Oh, way more than that one.
Yes.
Now those are some bloomers over there, I tell ya.
This is, over on that bank is the California River. But you can see the mill race coming down here, and you can see we're putting more mud into the river. Now, this is where the two come together. And you can see this is the
Oh, look at that
connector.
doll.
Now, the
My
story
granny used to tell
is
me about
perhaps
having clothes made out of flower
because
sacks.
the Chinese were working on the railroad, that maybe they got the Chinese to come and dig the mill race.
So the state took it over really by water rights, wasn't it?
Well,
Wasn't it a
that
big
was
reason?
the main thing, because the mill, the whole of the California River was being shucked water coming down the river. And that's where when the state bought this in 2003, they sold back 180 cubic feet per second to the river, which is why they've always had water in the river since that time. They opened the mill to the public in 2007, so it took them 4 years to renovate this place for people. And you can see we have had our floods. The pictures here, this part of the mill actually fell down, but we've had water up to this level. You can see by looking out the windows, those lower windows were almost inundated. And if you want to go downstairs with me, I can show you that even this year, this part of the mill had that much water in the basement.
Such a dry year.
So, and it's been a dry year, yes. There's the watershed of the Calipuya. There are no dams other than here on the Calipuya. So thus, flooding does come year after year after year, even though it's a small watershed. Unlike the other watersheds like the Middle Fork and the Mackenzie and the Coast Fork of the Willamette have dams on and usually reservoirs. And that's what keeps the rest of the Willamette Valley dry. But the Calipuya comes down through this area and actually ends up with the Willamette River in Albany. Now we heard a rumor a bunch of years ago that people were throwing out these plates. These are the plates that they use to print the bags, and then after the bags are printed and given to the farmers would come over here and have Thompsons fill them up. But we went over to the Harrisburg dump. Somebody was throwing these away, and we rescued them. And you can see some of the product that they had. These are some of the product that got milled here. You can see some of the tags that were sewn into the bags. And behind there, we have hand carts. One thing about this mill, unlike many other mills, like the Magnolia Mill up in Albany and all, they were big enough to have forklifts. They could never have forklifts here because they were too big in a smaller mill. So they did everything by hand. But with the 4 girls the Thompsons had, they'd have fun here in the mill. They'd roller skate in the winter in here. And then because there was always some flour dust and stuff on the floor, you can see that these metal plates, which keep those hand cart wheels from digging into the wood, but the girls would take their socks or their shoes off and in their stocking feet would go skidding down these metal plates just for the fun of it.
I can see that.
And again, we have some of the old sewing machines and some of the paper bags that they've gone to instead of the burlap sacks. Now I'm going to ask everybody to go stand on our scale and see how much you weigh. Now I asked everybody to do that because one person, that won't move. do have many scales here, both small and large. This is one of the larger ones. So I always get everybody, especially when you get a bunch of kids up here. That's how they used to weigh things. You know what that is? Where they got it back.
Ah, yeah.
Now, finally, when they...
Kind of like the space, the down one actually worked, unlike the currents or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Their toilet didn't work.
Right. Well, they did start hiring women in the office here, and they put a toilet in for them. Turn around and see the picture of the funny. Yeah. Obviously, we don't use it anymore. But over in this corner, these are some of the office equipment, all the way up to modern computers. I mean, I learned to type on a typewriter like that. It's kind of interesting.
So this is pretty interesting, guys. You guys need to come and take a look at it. It really is amazing. Trying to get a little bit of a scope of how big this place is. Hopefully you don't get dizzy. And back to the tour.
Kind of a special corner for us. It's our homage to the guy that worked 30 years or so, somewhere between 30 and 40 years. This was his job. What he did was he could sew a sack with that sack needle in 8 seconds. It's that good. Then they gave him a hanging sewing machine. So he probably was even faster. But because this is our homage to Bud, we always point out, you see this pattern that wears through the plywood? He wore that out with his feet 3 times. Fill a bag, sew a bag, put it over here. Somebody would come grab it. But this was Bud's corner, worked here for well over 30 years. And we have Abraham Lincoln's picture there. You think about that. The original mill was built in 1858, burned in 1860, rebuilt in 1862. So Abraham Lincoln was the president when this mill was first built. Now, this is how they built it. They have a tree log come down, top wall. And of course, they had to square it off to get these beams. They did that all by hand. And if you look at the broad axe, one side of it is absolutely flat, and the other side is metal. And that is how they used to square things off. But think about that. Look at the mill and think that it's over 160 years old and it's built without nails. Every once in a while you'll find a craftsman who will build you a house like that. It will last over 100 years. It'll also cost you an arm and a leg to do it. That's a good example of what we do now. Old growth versus the growth that is now have. You can see how close versus how far the tree ring goes. All of these timbers are old growth. Okay, we've been walking for a while, so come have a seat, please. But think of Bud and what he was hearing as he was working his 8-hour shift. And there were no earplugs.
That's over 85.
What was that one? That's a shaker right there. Shakes
So
things
that
as
was-
it's coming down.
As before it gets ground, the shaker for the
Yes.
rocks and stuff.
Well, no, that was the stuff that was outside. This is afterwards.
Remember how Sam was doing the shaking over
So
there?
that's after it's
Right.
ground.
It usually was ground. They sent it back upstairs to a bin and could come down and they would shake out.
So the machine
difference.
shakes it.
Yes.
So then they had to take the trays, but the shaker
Correct.
got it.
But if you want to look and see what the inside of one of the, you want to look up there? Yeah, go ahead. That's what one of the bins would look like on the inside. Now, I mentioned that flower dresser.
I wanna see
There's a
how
picture
high-
of the flower dresser right there. So, now remember I said that there's stairs over there? Thompson hated running upstairs, and so did his boys. So he went and bought an elevator. If you'll go over there and glance up.
I
So-
checked back in them days.
So are those the metal that you were talking about that they like to use their socks on?
Yes.
That plate there?
The plate, yeah. But isn't that goes up the 4 stories to the top?
It's a long way
But
up
you
there.
can see, shoot, 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 shoot,
Were
shoot.
they labeled, or you
Yeah.
just had to learn them? So they might have different.
You could actually, by opening a particular chute upstairs, and that's what these are connected to, different things. There was a table right here, upstairs, and you could go from a bin up here and put it down to different chutes. And they had different chutes that could come in there with different products, so you could have different mixes of animal food. That's how you shut the chute off.
Put the bulkhead in.
Just think of all the stuff that would fall down around. This place was probably pretty dusty.
So the fire, was it caused by the dust or do they even know?
Well, the first one? We don't know for sure. There was either a wool carding mill beside this one or maybe in this one. Now, carding of wool, where you start pulling it apart, takes heat to help do that. I think that maybe that's what started the fire.
But you could, I mean, if you've got fine enough powder,
It could explode on
yeah,
it,
I mean, you could have,
Yeah.
you know, it could.
which is one of the
Called
reasons why you don't want.
combustible bell.
Yeah, you don't want any sparks in there at all.
Yep.
So I'm sure none of the guys smoked here.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I'm sure OSHA was real strong back then.
What? OSHA?
Who?
Who? Okay, everybody want to go downstairs?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, all guys,
Watch that.
we have yellow hash marks on the beams. That's where we decapitate.
Okay.
Please do not decapitate yourselves.
Keep my head.
We do, every once in a while, get flooded down. Well, they were smart enough to keep the floorboards apart so it would drain. The only thing they would do afterwards, after everything drains, is come down here and sweep up the mud. They'll know that actually comes down. And since I don't have any kids, I can take them over here. We had to put up these burlap sacks in across because we have kids literally leaning out there. Yeah, we got a little scared about it. fish down here, so I don't know if there's any. Now, if there's enough water coming through that you can't see them, but we have northern pike minnows that kind of hang out here. This time of the year, they've gone upriver to spawn. But a pike minnow gets about that big.
Not so minnowy.
We did put new stances, supports over on that side this last year, the new concrete that you can see. Things were deteriorating. How?
The pike minnow.
Well, the pike minnows go up the river, which is over there on that side, not up here.
So they pulled it off the river to get the drop.
Yeah,
So they hang out here and then they go back to the river.
the spawn, yeah.
Got it.
This is where the tail race comes into the river, right here.
What's the tail race?
This is the tail race
From the mill.
from the mill. The flume race is where the turbines are. We'll go see that right now. But you can see that the state SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Officer, wants us to use as much original material as we can if we have to repair it. So that's why we have some of this wood in the area. But this corner of the mill was underwater. Thought about doing a Halloween party down here on Halloween night.
Just to drink alcohol, that might hurt.
Yeah. You see the grate over there? That looks down on the flume race with the 3 turbines in. I'm going to turn that on. So take your turn and look down that. Ladies with long hair, men with long hair, men with no hair. Watch. Gears. Don't get caught up in there.
That would be,
Okay?
that would
So
not
I'll
be
go over
fun.
and turn it on. Go ahead and take your turn looking down. Everything's blocked up. Everyone. But he wanted out. So he chose to go out. And it's always locked up at night. But he really wanted out, so he chose his way out.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
He wandered up.
Last question. How'd I do? Very good.
Very
good.
good.
Great. Wonderful. Good. I hope I imparted stuff. The stuff you get on the self-guide, you don't get anything down here, but you also get the stories. And there are many, many stories. Anyway,
Thanks so much.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Let's go upstairs. Just watch your head. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you have it. This is Thompson's Flouring Mill. It's about 160 plus years old, and it's a wonderful trip. It's just a little bit south of Albany, Oregon, and a place called Shed. It's off the highway. You got to kind of do a little bit of
Little
looping around to
loops.
get here, but it's well worth the drive. It's beautiful country, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, you think about all the people that worked here over the years and their livelihoods, some that worked 30, 40 years here. It's a pretty interesting place and definitely worth the drive.
And we had the best tour guide. Bill was awesome. Thanks so much, Bill, and everybody else who helps to run this place. It was just a really great time. So if you get a chance, please come and take a look at it. I'm going to have it linked in the description down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us.
Because we're better late than never, because
Because you're never too
adventure
late.
never has to retire.
Oh my gosh.
At least one of us got it right.